tonight's show. We've got a great show in store for you. We have a very special ghost, Chris Herron of Tall Tale TV.
That'll be on Title, Stock, and Tipples.
With Jude Madelich Hall, the author of the Eversteam Chronicles.
We also have some wonderful little clips of a 1968 movie by
George A. Romero. Can you guess?
Night of the Living Dead.
One of my favorites.
Make a couple of comments on it too. We'll be watching it with you guys. We're gonna offer you a little backstory on how Bad JuJu came to be.
Yeah, we're gonna go back in time and show you how we met. Enjoy!
Enjoy.
When the zombie apocalypse hit, everyone was clueless. Sure, those nutjob preppers had a bit of a head start. But come on, how much difference can a backpack full of trail mix and a first aid kit really make? It's the end of the world, not a weekend trip to Yellowstone. At this point, the undead number in the billions. The human race dwindles more every day. I've been trying to reach a large group of survivors holed up in Fort Sumter, just outside of Charleston, but no luck yet. I'll figure out a way. I have to. I can smell them from outside the wall, and I can practically taste that juicy skull jelly.
Sci-fi and fantasy short stories.
We have a whole lot of teas coming at you. We've got Titles, Talk, and Tipples with me. My guest is Chris Herron with Tall Tale TV. And we are drinking tea. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
So for those that don't know what Tall Tale TV is, why don't you go ahead and give us a little review?
Sure. So Tall Tale TV is a project I started in 2017. Basically, I take short stories submitted to me by authors from all around the world, and I narrate them out loud. So when I put them on a podcast, also it's a YouTube channel, and I just, try to get them pushed out there. And finally, I'm actually starting to pay authors. So that's great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm slowly becoming an honest to goodness publisher.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and you were one of the first people that picked up something of mine, so that was very exciting. And
Yeah,
it was actually, it was a friend that an acquaintance really that I met on critters.org, and she gave me the name of someone from England, and they gave me your name. So yeah, you're kind of all over the place. The fact
Is that a Critical Role website, critters.org?
Yeah, it's a critiquing website.
Critiquing.
For stories and novels. Actually, that's where I got my beta readers for my novel. But
I haven't heard of that one. I'll have to remember that.
Oh yeah, it's pretty. I guess it's pretty big. I don't know as far as critiquing websites how that goes. But it's a totally non-for-profit for authors website. So it's really great.
That's awesome. I'll have to look into it. Put it as a resource on my website.
Yeah. And it's very exciting. I know quite a few authors that have been published by you. And so it's pretty cool. I have a writers group on Facebook, and every once someone will post something. I'm like, oh, hey, I know Tall Tale TV. And you have a really
500 episodes now, so there's quite a few of them.
500. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So awesome. You did an excerpt of the Pyro of the Eversteam Chronicles for me, and it was the Pyro. And I wanted to say, I love your storytelling because on mine there was no dialogue, but I listened to several of your stories, and you do different voices, you do accents, you do the whole thing. So
I try.
Yeah. And my husband was listening to me with it to it with me as well, and he really enjoyed it. So how long have you been voice acting?
So I've been working at this since 2016. I didn't start the channel until 2017. But I kind of got into it because I went temporarily blind for the better part of a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. And, that's intense.
Yeah, I kind of turned to audiobooks and fell in love with them. So, so I've been working at it for a while.
Okay. And so when you were listening did you not listen to audiobooks before that incident?
I had on and off. I never really considered them a big part of my life. It's like I used to carpool with my dad, and he would listen to audiobooks as we drove, and I would sleep. But we would listen to like the Harry Potter, books and stuff like that, and a couple other. Jim Dale was his favorite narrator, so we listened to a lot of stuff by Jim Dale.
Nice.
Narrated by Jim Dale. But I hadn't really ever considered it anything that I would be passionate about, and I definitely never thought I'd be into acting at all, because I was always the kid in the orchestra, not the theater or anything like that. But once I kind of had to turn to them, because I used to read every single day. I would go through a couple dozen books a year, and then I couldn't read it all. So I had to turn to audiobooks and just fell in love.
Oh, that's great. And so did you do any voice acting before Tall Tale TV?
No, I had never even considered it. But
yeah.
seeing what these authors did to some of my favorite books, I think it was Stephen Briggs is the one who got me hooked with the Terry Pratchett's Discworld. And
yeah.
he just does the most amazing voices. And I had loved those books beforehand. Then he gave each and every character even more depth, and it just added a new layer that I just completely fell in love with the genre all over again.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Terry Pratchett's my favorite author, so that's exciting. I'm not big time into audiobooks either, so I love listening to the short stories. And you have such an array of so many different authors, so many different kinds of stories.
Thank you.
Creepy horror type ones, and of sci-fi. Yeah. And
I actually found out after I started that there was an entire community of horror narrators on YouTube that I just had no idea even existed. I thought I was doing something brand new. It's like, nope, they've been doing it for years.
Oh, wow.
So, and I was never big into horror.
Yeah. And I like gothic horror, but other than extreme horror and stuff like that, it really isn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, the flash and gore, serial killers, stuff like that. I've never been into that. I can appreciate it, but
sure.
the stuff like H.P. Lovecraft and anything that's like sci-fi and flavored. It's like I did that stuff. I used to love the Twilight Zone.
I was just gonna say. The similar, because those are short stories and they can get creepy and stuff, but they're not. It's usually psychological. And are you yourself a writer? Or are you just a reader?
Yes and no. I used to be heavily into writing before the issues with my eyes because of diabetes. Long story. But I used to write all the time. I wanted to be a writer. I was part of the writing communities on online. But after that, now all the writing I do is me and my wife kind of work together on her novels. Okay. So I'm her main editor. Sometimes she'll have me write portions of a chapter. If it's like action, she doesn't like to write action, so she'll have me write that stuff. So I get to play around with the written word, but it's not my passion anymore. It's just something that I still enjoy, but not what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, and you're a huge supporter of authors, which we do need. I always
try to give them as much credit as I can, right at the end there, and give them however long they want to talk about their own projects. I want to promote authors because I used to be one. I know how hard it is to get anybody to notice you at all.
There's a lot of us, but that's okay. It's a lot for everybody. And so speaking of your wife, who's your wife? As she is a novelist.
Well, she doesn't have anything professionally published. It's only published on my show right now. Her name is Leslie Herron. Nice. And she writes about every fourth episode is actually one of her chapters. So she's writing her first draft. So not the rough draft, but the first draft live on the show. Okay. So, and she's on her fourth novel now.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. I'll have to look her up.
Yeah, I kind of wiggled out a little bit of area in my show for her to do her thing. So.
Oh, that's great.
Part of the reason she started writing is early on, I couldn't get any submissions. So she said, okay, I'll write a short story for you. We'll make sure it's a couple parts so that you can have some episodes. It turned into a novel, then it turned into a second novel, and now she's on her fourth one. It's a really long short story.
That's incredible. I love it. It's one way to write a story, right? How long are the stories? I've noticed that you have all different lengths. Is there a minimum and a maximum?
So currently, right now, my minimum is 1,000 words, usually. And then my maximum is about 6,000. Okay. I am hoping to open up that shorter end, the less than 1,000, to add in an extra story every week, to have 3 rather than 2. Oh. So that's one thing I'm working on. And then as I'm getting a little bit better at not doing so many retakes in my stories, I've been slowly increasing that higher end to allow bigger stories. And I'm hoping I can make some breakthroughs this year. I'm going to be really striving for that because I'd like to take on longer stories. If I could do an hour-long story, that would be amazing. But right now, the even the ones that are 6,000 that are like, half hour, 45 minutes, they take me a couple hours to produce.
I can imagine.
Because I'm doing the same line so many times because I'm having trouble with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I was going to ask, about how many takes, how long does it take you to do, say, a half an hour story? So yeah, like half a day or quarter of a day, right?
Early on, it was about a 6-to-1 ratio. Oh, so wow. for if it was a 10-minute story, it would take me about an hour to do. So half-hour story would take me 3 hours to do.
Yeah.
But it's not that bad anymore.
Yeah. We have some special footage for you this spooky evening. We've got George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. The only reason we're able to show this to you is because of a very special mistake they made way back when with the title change of the movie. It was originally going to be Night of the Flesh Eaters. Then they changed it, but they didn't change something in the credits, and so now it's in public domain. So we get to share it. Woo!
With you.
With you. Enjoy.
And we're going to be making our own comments and giving you some knowledge.
Woo!
Oh my.
So this particular scene, the whole town gathered when they heard that there was going to be a naked lady in the show. And so all the perverts in town set up lawn chairs.
They all gathered around to watch.
That had their beer on the night they knew the lady was going to be naked. Ooh, yummy.
This is Bill Cardell, WIC TV 11 News.
And I believe that's George Romero. I'm
Official
not
spokesman
sure.
declined to speculate
The wonderful
just how long it may
Dwayne
take to kill
Jones
off
has
all
been.
the flesh eaters, so long as the heavy
Can't
rain.
burn off the other guys. I really like this scene because of the noir film elements.
I don't know.
The great lighting and the way. I personally like it because of the interaction between the actors, especially when he's trying to. Right here, when he's doing that, and his wife is just like,
to get that gun.
"What is wrong with you?"
Haven't you had enough?
But 2 people are dead already on account of that guy. Take a look out that window, Cricket.
Together.
I personally found it really interesting that the creatures are actually using tools.
Showing some awareness. I believe George A. Romero was the only one that did that with his quote-unquote zombie movies. Although Romero never referred to his creatures as zombies, they were ghouls or flesh eaters.
Certainly we're driven to get dinner.
A bunch of zombies outside, and they're all trying to survive, and this guy wants the power.
Get the cellar now! Move!
loved how there was really no hesitation on behalf of the character Ben, as he just knew that guy was just going to get them all killed. Was really cool. They didn't have much of a budget for this movie, only $150,000. And so they were trying any way possible not to spend money. And so the food that the little girl was munching on was the crew's leftover lunch, covered in a very special ingredient.
Again, the use of tools. Instead of just eating the flesh.
Yeah. I think it was to show that there was some sort of thought process. The sound effects were incredible.
The use of shadow.
Yeah. And, kids, what's the secret ingredient? Chocolate sauce.
One thing that I thought of when you were reading my excerpt was that you should totally do audiobooks. Have you ever thought of putting yourself out there and taking on entire novels, besides in parts like your wife's?
I have done one novella and one novel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have done some professional work. The standard to which the audio is held is a lot higher, so it's a lot more labor intensive to do that. Mm-hmm. The big reason that I decided to go with the short stories, though, is I made that decision early on because I wanted to go into narration. And so I was thinking initially I was going to go into audiobooks and whatnot, but then I was looking at how many audiobooks a lot of these guys have done that have been in the industry for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. And it's like, each book would take you a couple weeks to do, and I would rather see a lot more stories in that. So I just decided at that time, I'd rather do a couple thousand short stories than a couple dozen novels. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not against the idea of doing the longer format, but I need to have more free time before I take it on.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. I have more ideas than I have time to follow through with. Oh, I should do a podcast on this. I should do, it's like, I need to find people that need ideas. That's what I need. Sell you my idea for $5.
That's awesome.
I really enjoy listening to you, the way you tell a story. You're calm enough that you don't get, you get excited when it's exciting. You can get that really melancholy sound when it's serious.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of my
I thought it was going to be.
It's what?
It's a lot trickier than I thought it was going to be.
Okay. So that stuff doesn't come to you naturally. You really have to work at it.
Yeah, I am not a natural actor by any stretch of the imagination. It's like I used to be a very monotone individual.
Okay. So I guess I'm like, how did you find that then? Did you just keep playing around with it till you
playing around a lot and emulation? So I did have a teacher for a while there. Sean Crisden, amazing voice actor. He does a lot of romance stuff. He's one of the bigger names in that industry. But he did a great job helping me get started. But he kind of taught me the fundamentals. And then I found a lot of my depth and range by listening to other voice actors and just mimicking as I listen to them kind of what they're doing. So it's like as they narrate out loud, I would narrate a half second behind them and kind of feel the way that their pitch changes, how they dig into certain words, stuff like that. And that kind of really opened my eyes as to what these guys are doing and what kind of tools they use in this craft. So it was quite enlightening to just listen.
Well, I can imagine like enunciation is really important too. You know, it's like, and like you said, monitor. It's like if you don't enunciate and stuff, it would tend to just kind of mush together, and person wouldn't be able to understand what you're saying. And so, like all that.
Yeah, and enunciation has always been my biggest issue. Well, that and pronunciation.
For authors, you accept authors all the time, or are you submitted out? I mean, your slush pile mile high.
So last year I had a sudden influx because in like January of last year, a magazine promoted Tall Tale TV. And so I had never been ready for that. And I got so many submissions, I had to shut down for a while. And I actually brought on a good friend he was the guy who got me into writing. And he is now my editor.
Oh, fantastic.
And so it's like together we've managed to get caught up enough that I opened everything back up. And we're hoping that for the foreseeable future, we won't have to do, seasons where it's like we shut down during these times and open during these times. We're just trying to keep on top of everything coming in, but we'll see how long that can keep up. So there's no set schedule right now.
Okay. So how would an author go about submitting to your podcast?
Sure. There is my website is talltaletv.com. Tall Tale, like tall tales, and you just go there, and then in the menu there is a submission drop down, and there's submission form, and you just go in there and you enter in all the fields, copy paste your story, attach the file, whatnot, and just hit the submit button, and it'll head to both me and my editor, and we'll take a look at it. And it usually takes us about a month or two right now to get a reply. We're trying to get that down as low as we can, but
that's a good turnaround, actually. It's like
I was surprised that's a good turnaround. I thought it was horrible.
yeah. There are times that you might not hear from someone for 6 months. Short stories do tend to be a little faster, but novels sometimes you can wait up to 6 months. But it could be 3 months for a short story, so you're doing good. And you got someone to help you, which is always great. I sometimes feel like I need an assistant.
Yeah, right now he's working on promise of future pay.
Oh, nice. That's great. And one question that authors might ask is, do you do professional pay for your stories, or you less than most people are less than that? I think it's 8 cents a minute or something. 8 cents.
Oh, you mean a professional rate?
Yeah. So the rate of, not that it's important.
Right. No, I think it is 8 to 12 cents is professional rate, something like that.
Yeah.
We are not anywhere close to that yet.
A lot of most aren't. It's very hard to get in on those.
Right now, I'm doing a token payment of $10 a story. I actually toss like 12 to cover any fees that happen with PayPal or whoever they decide to go with. But both me and my editor have agreed that we're going to continue to up that until we get at least close to a professional rate before we start taking in income ourselves. But great. It's trying to get the ad revenue. It's slow going. Yeah.
Oh, surprisingly, it adds up fast. But that's great that you're doing that. It's great that you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, for the longest time we didn't, and I always felt horrible just doing it for promotion basically. Sure. But people still wanted to do it, and I figured it's like, okay, I'm turning it into an audiobook, so that's something.
Yeah, it totally is. I've only, so for me, my YouTube channel, I haven't been doing it for very long, so I have like 45 followers, and I have I post on social media and stuff, but like when you did when you read my excerpt, it's had like over 300 views, which I'm like, wow, that's 300 people know about 300 more people know about my story than I could have ever reached. So
I'm guessing that's just on YouTube.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm guessing that was like the count on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube. So that's
okay,
not
you
even.
could add another 1,000 on top of that easy with the podcast. So.
Oh wow! Yeah, see how exciting is that? So, is your podcast? I know I do a podcast, but I'm not big into podcasts. So where can people listen to your podcast besides YouTube? I know I need to get with the program. I mean, I just do YouTube. That's where I find my podcast, vodcasts really. But
the only other podcast I listen to is Critical Role, and I haven't listened to that in months.
Shh. Do you want me to cut that out? No, I'm just kidding.
I made it so that the podcast is available pretty much anywhere you can find them. And I tell people, if you can't find it, let me know and I'll get it onto that platform. But yeah, it's on Apple, it's on Google, it's all the main ones that pull from those, it's there, Spotify. So just look up Tall Tale TV and you'll find it most likely.
That's fantastic.
Coming to get you, Barbara.
And who gets her in the end? They're coming to get you, Barbara. Hey, Barbara.
If their food off was ready and fresh, why would they want to kill it first?
I don't know. There's a commentary, the movie's commentary on usage of nuclear energy. And it's only briefly, you have to pay attention to really catch it. But that's supposedly why the dead started coming back to life.
Let's go check out the house. There's something there. I heard a noise.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Ben, he survived the night, only to be shot down. And there's some. This was supposed to. They originally had it written as a happy ending.
Another one for
and the man who portrayed Ben, his real name is Dwayne Jones. It was his idea to have the character die at the end. So it was a little bit of political commentary at the time, because this was made in 1968. Only 4 years after African Americans were given equal rights. But there, of course, was still stuff going on. And I feel that these last still images are some of the most poignant in the entire movie.
hearing the sounds in the background while this is going on. The still shots, pretty heavy duty.
In this end part, that they should have shown Barbara. I wonder if they thought about that. What do you think?
Barbara was eaten.
Oh.
Not to be confused with Barbara Eden.
Barbara was eaten, that's right. That's right. So they never showed like some zombie movies that followed, and still they often show that the people that got eaten coming back to life. But that actually wasn't some of these in these original movies.
There you have it.
There you have it. And so that's the apex scenes of Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero's 1968. Definite spoilers, so if you have not seen the whole movie by now, right. I think you should. I think most horror buffs have seen it. So thank you.
Enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
You chose a certain type of tea. We're not going to use brand names, but it is a throat tea specifically. Yeah. And you mentioned that you know, lots of voice actors use it. Can you give some tips to how to take care of yourself, what you do, all that stuff surrounding your voice acting?
Absolutely. Okay, so first of all, the tea is basically when you're voice acting. For me personally, most voice acting now doesn't stress my throat at all. I've gotten to the point where it's used to it. What if I'm doing a lot of low voices, you know, and I'm using a lot of gravel and stuff like that? Just different accents can kind of pull out different parts of your voice. It kind of wears on you after a while. Mm-hmm. And so with that, to keep it from getting kind of sore, this throat coating tea makes it so that everything is nice and smooth. It's not a perfect fix, but it allows you to go longer without doing any real damage. But if you ever get to the point, because we're talking about safety, if you ever get to the point that something is starting to hurt, stop. Come back later, give it a couple hours at least. You don't want to push it because you can actually develop calluses on your voice box and your larynx and stuff like that, which is not good. You have to have those surgically removed. So,
oh my!
I didn't just hurt. Don't do it.
Well, I've heard of people getting when they're losing their voice and straining their vocal cords and stuff, but it can get even more serious than that.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just repeated abuse of them was what leads to that. So if you do it for a day or a couple, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. If you've been, if you're in a Dungeons and Dragons group and you've been playing a dwarf, your dwarf is doing all sorts of stuff, you're fine. Don't freak out. But if you're becoming a voice actor and you're abusing that on a daily basis for a year or two, you're going to have issues.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of warm up. So one of the big things that I do is tongue twisters.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. Tongue twisters. So like rubber baby buggy bumpers. Or if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? I wish to wind my Irish wristwatch. I messed that one up.
I wish to wind my Irish wristwatch. Oh my gosh. That's great.
But those are a lot for dictation, but I found that I can use them to also get myself into the mode of voice acting by putting emotional inflection on them, which is something I came up with myself, and I'm kind of proud of it.
Yeah, please share.
If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, okay? If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Just going through a bunch of different, is it a question? Is it an accusation? Is it fearful?
Sure.
you do a bunch of that before you voice act, and all of a sudden you're able to jump into those emotional beats a lot easier. So that's one of the big things that you can do to improve your voice acting. As far as preventing injury, a lot of things that you can do involve, if you can yawn on command, just kind of, it loosens up the back of your throat, and that'll keep you from straining. Because the more you talk, the more you kind of get, tension in there, and it gets a little bit higher and whatnot. Not to that degree, but if you do it for hours and hours every day, it'll start to wear on you. But if you can force yourself to yawn, or some people like to say, "Hey, boo boo," like Yogi Bear or whatever.
Like, like that.
Pull it into your throat, or you can even gently push your throat side to side. It just loosens up the muscles in there, and then you're good to go again. It also makes your voice a lot smoother, especially with guys. You can start to get a little bit of that, vocal fry in there and whatnot. But with girls, it just makes it so that it's a lot smoother. If you do have a voice with, the vocal fry, kind of like Scarlett Johansson has a bit of gravel in her voice.
Yeah,
it's like that would keep that in there rather than it coming out.
Okay,
if you like that kind of effect. But it's preventative, but it also makes your voice a lot more smooth and a lot more enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah.
So it's interesting stuff like that you kind of learn along the way. There's another thing I saw recently along those same emotional ones. I've been using it lately and I love it. It's just a sentence. I never said we should murder him. I never said we should murder him. I never said we should murder him. You just put the inflection.
Yeah.
And it gets you into that feel of just changing those intonations and where you put the inflection, and it makes it so that the sentences that you read have a lot more punch. How to kind of shape that sentence a lot more easier.
Well, and listening to the story should never be boring, and so I think and there's a lot of nostalgia that comes into listening to short stories, because a lot of us were read to as kids. And so if you had one of those awesome parents, which I did different voices. I tried to do different accents, so it wasn't just the same thing all the way through. You got to make it exciting. Would it be horrible of me if I wanted to put you on the spot?
Okay.
So if someone wrote a story about an Irish warrior princess, what kind of voice would you do for that?
Oh gosh. Okay, an Irish warrior princess.
And I have no lines for you, so I know that's not helpful.
No. I have to go through this kind of process all the time. So I would start probably by just spitballing it. So I go into an Irish accent, something like that. I know it's not a perfect Irish accent, but I can do it. And then to make it female, I kind of give it a bit more breath, and I give it a bit of a higher end of everything. So it's just right now a female Irish accent. But if she's a warrior princess, she's probably a bit more stern with her voice. There's a lot more cutoff at the end, and so sounds a bit angry even, something along those lines.
That's great. So. And so you briefly did a dwarf. Now if you do a Scottish sounding dwarf.
Making me go straight from Irish to Scottish.
I'm sorry. I know.
It's fine.
I have a Scottish dwarf in my current novel that I'm writing. And
so a Scottish accent. That's one that I've been struggling with for years, but I'm getting closer to it. So now I've got the Scottish accent going, and if I want to add in that kind of gravel to it to make him sound like he's a dwarf, I could kind of do that right there. And he could either be a mean dwarf, or he could be a nice dwarf that's kind of like, please don't hurt me, whatever. So it's, so it's...
Drop
if I'm doing an accent that I'm not too comfortable with, I'll sit down for like 15 minutes beforehand and watch videos of people either explaining the accent or just like a TV series that has that accent in there,
I wish I were better at them. I suppose if I practiced, I would be, but it always sounds better in my head than coming out.
Same.
Well, you do a great job, and you give it. You're upholding your end very well, sir.
That's what all I could ask for.
Great. Well, thank you so much for telling wonderful stories, and for telling I won't send you anything for the pyro with Russian accents.
No, feel free.
Okay.
Actually, I love stories that push me. So that's where I tend to learn, stories that push me. So my wife is always throwing me curveballs intentionally. I cannot do a French accent for my life. One of her main characters has a French accent.
Oh, well, that's great that you stretch yourself like that.
Yeah. So no, feel free.
What are some can you think off the top of your head that would stretch besides a French accent and a Russian accent? Can you think of anything that would be a challenge that maybe some writers can aspire to send you?
Oh goodness. Let's see. I'm slowly learning to do some African stuff. Right now, it still sounds kind of Caribbean, but so anything African, I'm dipping my toes into that. I need to learn how to do a Spanish accent, which I live in Colorado. How do I not know how to do a Spanish or Hispanic accent? Most of the people on my street don't speak English, and I can't do a Spanish accent. I don't understand it.
Can knock on their door. Hey, can you teach me how to talk like neighbor?
It's like, come over.
Yeah. Well, and that's really great because you don't want to go off of stereotypes, right?
Exactly.
And that's a huge, that's a huge thing when doing accents. And as a writer and stuff, I'm really aware of not falling back on stereotypes, which unfortunately a lot of people do. But you're going to go about it the right way. That's so awesome. And I look forward to hearing those other accents. So thank you so much. Wait, what? Will you say that again?
I'm working on German.
Oh, you're working on German. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a tough accent.
Be sure to subscribe and like to Titles, Talk, and Tipples.
Thank you very much. All right, have a great night, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Sci-fi and fantasy short stories.
Being an undead minion for the Necrolord ain't so bad. Sure, the pay is, well, I ain't never been paid as such. And the hours is brutal, seeing as we don't sleep and never leave our posts. But at least we get medical benefits. Though, now I think about it, a shambling corpse don't exactly need medical. Maybe we should unionize.
Yo, J Bone.
Yeah.
What kind of boat does a vampire sail?
I don't know.
A blood vessel.
Hey, Bad JuJu.
Yeah, J Bone.
You know why the skeleton didn't go to the party?
Why didn't the skeleton go to the party?
Oh, he didn't have the guts.
Oh, I was going to do a joke at that. I was going to say, why was the skeleton afraid? Because he didn't have any guts. That's funny that you chose that joke. You're on the same page. I don't have any memorized.
Okay. Hey, Bad JuJu.
Yeah, J Bone.
What's the difference between 5 corpses and a Rolls Royce?
What is the difference?
I don't have a Rolls Royce in my garage.
Ooh. Gather round, devilish little children. This is a wonderful story by Chris Herron, the creator of Tall Tale TV. It's about Grah, a skeletal warrior. Grah rose his shield, deflecting the cultist's sword. The impact of steel on wood rattled his very bones. The black-toothed cultist grinned wickedly with a face covered in intricate runes. Grah lashed out with the rusted saber in his sword hand, snaking it around in an upward stab. It pierced the cultist's jaw and spitted through the top of his helmet with a meaty thunk. Grah jerked his blade, but it was stuck firm in the poor bastard's brain holster. As he fought to free his weapon, a second cultist came in from behind with a spear. Grah looked down, surprised to see the wooden shaft poking out from between his ribs. This would have been a serious issue if he had any flesh or organs still clinging to said ribs. Still, it pissed him off. He never understood why enemies thought stabbing a reanimated skeleton in the chest would work. But they always tried regardless, and he had met more than his share of evildoers, monsters, and deranged eldritch beings since the necromancer had summoned him. As Grah couldn't die, the party of adventurers relied on him to keep them safe. A meat shield, as they say in the business. The irony of this was not lost on him. Grah bashed the rim of his wooden shield into the torso of the second cultist, crumpling him to the ground with a shattered diaphragm. Grah twisted the spear from his ribs and thrust it through the man's chest, pinning him to the ground. Grah! Okay, so it wasn't the snappiest of one-liners, but since it was the only sound he could make without an esophagus, it would have to do. Grah looked around to see how his party had fared. The enemies all lay dead. So did his party. Grah! He swore. Cormac, the party's muscle-bound leader, was crushed in the jaws of a mighty scaled beast that the cultists had been summoning. The beast had apparently died, choking on Cormac's lumpy barbarian torso. He had been the only man Grah had ever known to wear a leather thong and a matching top, something about his nipples being sensitive to sunburn. Nadira, the elven thief, had been stabbed in the back with no less than 3 spears. Unused healing potions still clutched tightly in either hand. Her bandoliers, which would normally have held dozens of knives, were filled instead with bandages, disinfectants, and other medical supplies. And that left the necromancer, Melvin, a squat little man with second-hand robes far too large for him. From the look of it, he had tripped and impaled himself on his own dagger. Oh, Melvin. Grah attempted to sigh. It wasn't that he was bad at his job. In fact, he was proud to say that even when he had been alive, there were few foes he couldn't best. Losing the ability to die simply made his skill all the more formidable. But this group of adventurers was, well, let's just say Grah had more brains than all the others combined, and his skull was literally full of cobwebs. It takes a special type of group to recruit a thief for the job of healer. To add to the issue, Cormac refused to use weapons. He insisted that his fists were the hands of justice. And when Melvin had conjured Grah, he rose to the summons more out of boredom than any mystical compulsion. Grah had a suspicion the necromancer was actually a drunk who had won his Tome of the Dead in a card game. Grah tossed his shield aside and slumped to the ground, using the dead necromancer as a chair. What the heck was he supposed to do now? Wait for another party? Lay down and go back to being dead? he was technically still tethered to the necromancer and couldn't wander off without someone else to bind him. That's when he noticed the necromancer's magic tome sitting at his feet. He reached down and flipped it open. As he thumbed the pages with a bony finger, he could feel the magic emanating from the text. An idea formed. He found the passage he was looking for and stood. He struck a dramatic pose, held his free hand out before him, and recited the incantation, Grah! There was a flash of light, a rumble of distant thunder, and the party members slowly started to stir. Grah was surprised he had nailed the complex pronunciations and the enchantment on the first try. The undead adventurers turned to face their new master, and in unison asked the question, Grah? That was a short story by Chris Herron, the creator of Tall Tale TV. You can catch him reading many more stories by himself and other authors in several different genres at www.talltaletv.com, as well as YouTube and anywhere that you can find podcasts. Enjoy your evening. Dreadful dreams. Thank you so much for joining us this spooky evening.
Do us a big favor. Hit the likes, hit the subscribes, tune in, enjoy,
And share with your other ghouls, goblins, friends, foes, and fiends.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.
Bye!